use the word emergency for the first time in about...
This is Jim, and,
Receiving this message. We are Ken Jennings and John Roderick. We speak to you from our present, which we can only assume is your distant past, the turbulent time that was the early 21st century.
Fearing the great cataclysm that will surely befall our civilization, we began this monumental reference of strange and obscure human knowledge. These recordings represent our attempt to compile and preserve wonders and esoterica that would otherwise be lost.
So whether you're listening from an advanced civilization or have just reinvented the technology to decrypt our transmissions, this is our legacy to you.
This is our time capsule. This is the Omnibus. You have accessed entry 536.AC0409, certificate number 42674. Goat glands.
What do you think about goats? You ever have goats growing up?
Never had goats. I've had very limited exposure to goats.
Limited cabrine exposure.
This is a great opportunity to talk about my walk across Europe.
There weren't any goats there, were there?
There were lots of goats, and I met lots of goats on that trip. Goats.
What's the vibe? What are Central European goats like? Friendly?
Well, they're the goats that are in fenced off fields. And then as you move further south in Europe, further southeast, you get into Romania and the like.
Countries where goats can be like prime minister.
You find that's terrible. No, but you find a lot of goats that are actually being herded, and they're moving from place to place in the mountains. So I walked across the Carpathians, as I've probably found opportunity to say many times.
And were you often stopped by a convoy of goats?
I did walk many goat trails. I did meet many goat herds coming through the rye. At one point, I stopped and talked to a shepherd.
A lonely goat herd? I don't think he was a shepherd.
No. You're right. He wasn't Sheps.
I'm quite convinced he was a
goat herd.
A gothard.
And he reached into his pocket in the spirit of our camaraderie and fraternity in the side of this mountain.
Schnapps.
And he pulled some goat cheese.
Wow.
Not wrapped. Just goat cheese.
Just sitting in his pocket.
Just straight up pulled a handful of goat cheese out of his pocket and offered some to me. And of course I accepted.
I do that at the movies all the time.
Where you're just like...
reach in my pocket, pull out a thing of goat cheese covered in lint.
Want any goat cheese?
Hand it to my neighbor.
And I felt like, is there a better goat cheese in the world than this goat herd's goat cheese? And there is better goat cheese in the world. But it was good. I mean, at the time, I was living on rotten plums. So the goat cheese was a killer little bit of protein.
Those are the only foods in a lot of those countries.
Goat cheese,
rotten plums, and goat cheese,
and pocket cheese. But so goats, I mean, I find them to be perfectly friendly. I mean, they're better than geese. Geese are the worst.
Oh yeah,
goats are great.
Geese and swans are crabby.
Yeah,
they'll go for your nose.
Are you pro goat?
Yeah, I feel like in in urban settings now, you increasingly see goats as kind of eco-friendly agents of urban renewal.
Pygmy goats.
Yeah, you got if you've got an overgrown backyard or vacant lot, instead of bringing in a backhoe, they'll just bring in a goat for a week, and it'll eat literally everything. It's the only thing that'll take out blackberries.
Well, let me just add a little addenda to this. I have a piece of property that was very overgrown with invasive species, and I reached out to
a goat,
to the goat people. There are a couple
to the goat people.
There are a couple, 3 different.
High in the mountains live the goat people, dancing and whistling on their pipes.
I found 3 different goat landscapers in King County and Island County who were willing to bring between 50 and 300 goats.
Wait, what?
To your property to clear.
Why do you need that many?
Well, because what they do is they fence off the area, depending on how big your property is. They fence it off, And then they just put the goats there, and the goats stay for some amount of time until they're done.
Until they've digested everything?
Until they've just plowed everything. And so I was like, this is amazing. Rather than pull out all this English ivy and chop down all these blackberries, I'm just going to hire 50 goats.
An army of goats.
Yeah, like no one can eat 50 goats.
It's just the problem of parallelism. Like, there's no problem you can't solve by throwing enough goats at it. Like
100%.
Enough goats could write Shakespeare.
I wonder what the Erdos number of goats as a group
as a
is.
species.
Yeah. But the problem was that all the goat people that I talked to were like, do you have laurel on your property? And I said, yes. And they said, laurel is poisonous to goats. Aww. And then they went down this list of things that goats can't eat. Now, I thought goats could eat anything. License plates. Yeah. But apparently
they actually don't. That's just
No, it's sharks that eat license plates, as we know.
That's right. The tin can thing is a trope from cartoons, probably from goats who like to eat the glue off the labels.
Oh, sure.
They can't digest metal.
Well, it turned out that I had a couple of different plants,
goat-proof plants.
Yeah, that were poisonous to goats, and in fact, all of the goat people replied to me kind of with a little bit of like scorn in their voice, like, no. We're not bringing our goats to your laurel-infested property.
I feel like you still could have solved this problem with goats. You just would have had to buy rather than rent the goats. They would have eaten everything.
Well, I wonder how good goat stew is if the goat died of laurel poisoning.
This goat curry taste has a delicious laurel-y taste. Did you put a bay leaf in here? Kind of. Yeah, some people find goats creepy because of it's central to our story today that goats have long been associated with different kinds of sinfulness.
Right. It's not just Pan. It's even before Pan. Goats were, in Greek mythology, there were nymphs who seemed cute and lived in ponds.
They were trees. They turn into trees if you try to date them.
Yeah, that's if you try to rape them. And
I think at the time it was kind of the same, unfortunately.
Well, that's
like
the
all
problem.
These stories were just the gods being like, the gods are not asking for consent.
The gods are like, I love you.
And
what that means is I'm coming for you.
Yeah.
But the male companion of nymphs were satyrs.
Half goat
boys. Goat boys. Not living in ponds, but rooting around in the woods.
And they're hypersexual.
Yeah, they're smelly and they want to hump.
But is that true of goats in general? Like if you were like, what's the horniest barnyard creature? First of all, I would say
roosters.
Mindy, stop asking me these weird questions. I'm doing a podcast.
Mindy, I'm trying to sleep.
Wake up. What would you say? But I don't think I would say goat. Yeah, right? Like it's I don't know. Like aren't stallions more
yeah, there you go.
More masculine?
No, the mighty bull.
Exactly. Bulls. Yeah. There we go.
There.
The bull is the overpowering sexual animal. So why did goats become Pan, the symbol of Pan, who is up to no good with every nymph?
They're stinky. I mean, they're pheromonal smelling.
Maybe that's it.
And so they kind of just smell sweaty all the time.
But do you think that smell used to get farmers going in a simpler time? And they would be like, that goat's asking for it.
The other thing about goats, I have a friend that has 2 pygmy goats, and they really want to stand on the highest thing.
Oh, yeah. There was a goat that you would just climb up on this shed behind a park by our house. And every time we took the kids to the playground there, the goat would be standing on the roof.
Yeah, these 2 goats were in a pen, and if you threw a 5-gallon bucket in there, the one goat would get up on it, and then the other goat would try and get up on it. It's like, hey, it's a 5-gallon bucket.
I've seen pictures of trees with multiple goats in the branches.
Yeah.
What do you think that impulse is?
They're just climbers. They're mountain
They're
things.
mountain goats.
Yeah, they want to get up. They want to get high.
Ancestral memory of flooding.
So yeah, that's right. They survived the flood.
They survived on Noah's Ark. And clearly all goats today are descendants of the 2 on Noah's Ark,
and they went up
as scientists tell us.
The top of the mast. I wonder if that's it, that they seem randy because they're trying to mount everything, but it's not that they want to have sex with it. They just want to get up on top
John
of it.
Darnielle's group is not called the mountain goat. I meant mountain apostrophe goats.
The mountain
goats that are always trying to get up on your leg. Or what if it was? What if he had a side project that was just songs about barnyard sex?
You know what? I'm going to text him right now and see how many times he's heard mountain goats as a joke.
I mean, he's into pro wrestling? Is he into
humping?
Is he into animal husbandry?
I mean, everybody's into humping. I don't know if he's into animal humping. I'm going to guess not.
He's a good family man now.
Yeah.
He's got a kid.
Yeah.
There's some evidence that he's into humping.
Yeah.
At least once.
I'm going to say, I mean, he and I have never engaged in like co-humping, but we've stayed in a hotel together in adjacent rooms.
The association of goats with evil is not just Greek myth, although that seems to be the main channel through which it's come down to us. I mean, goats are a symbol of evil in the Bible.
Are they really?
Yeah, in the book of Leviticus, there's a custom of taking two goats. One is like God's goat, but one is the like Azazel goat, which is the scapegoat the
scapegoat.
It's literally the scapegoat that you send out into the desert, laden down with the sins of the settlement.
But for communities that keep kosher or halal, goat is eatable, whereas pig is not. Why is pig not the evil animal?
I think it's because it has such a high bacon number.
Wow.
Wah, wah. Daniel has an apocalyptic vision of the end of the world in which a single horned goat, a goat with a single horn coming from between its eyes, figures.
Are there those?
No. In Daniel's vision, that one breaks off and 4 new horns come out. Also, there are no
4 horns.
4, yeah.
Those aren't real either.
That also does not exist.
Daniel's tripping, bro.
I think all these Hal Lindsey end times weirdos believe that this is a reference to Alexander the Great.
Oh,
who had that one horn between his eyes.
The 400-horned goat.
And then it broke off. Yeah, they called him Alexander the Goat, and then it was corrupted. And even Christ in Matthew 25 says that,
had a horn?
He has a single horn coming out of his forehead. No, he has he tells his disciples that at the time of the last judgment, God will separate out the sheep from the goats. Like the sheep will go to heaven, the goats will go to hell. So like, without explanation, the Bible seems to assume that we're all like, yeah, goats suck.
Yeah, I mean, if you put a goat next to a sheep, you're gonna pick the sheep for cuddliness, right?
Then how come John Darnielle doesn't have a band named the Cuddly Sheep?
Alaska mountain sheep are what we call the doll sheep. Is the big mountain goat up there? But it's not a goat; it's a sheep.
Why are they called sheep? They're just rams up in the mountains.
Yeah, big mountain sheep. That are very popular with hunters, but I've never fully understood like what the relationship between sheep and goats is anyway. They're in the same family, right? Can sheep and goats interbreed?
They cannot. You think that's how you get geeps?
Shoats?
I think they are. Yeah, I think they're evolutionarily they're closer than most barnyard buddies. But goats are associated with Satan as well.
Well, right. He's the goat's right there on the pentagram.
I guess because he's got horns and hooves, but maybe that's the other way around. Maybe he has horns and hooves because goats are so stigmatized in the Bible.
You think that they evolved hooves as a
defense mechanism,
as a kind of like sympathetic.
I mean, the modern Satanists' interest in like the goat god Baphomet. Have you seen this guy?
Sure.
He's got a goat head. He's usually naked and he's got big bat wings.
I have listened to a lot of heavy metal, and
you've sold your soul to Baphomet?
Nope. Leased it for a few years, but got it back.
That's good. That's always smarter. Well, like when Satan is like, you're like, what if you make one of my dreams come true and it's a 5-year lease?
But you see Baphomet in a lot of metal iconography.
Yes.
I know people that have Baphomet tattoos. Satanism was a thing.
But like a lot of that stuff, it's just a 19th century invention, actually. Like it was one of these occult Crowley adjacent guys. I think a French guy named Levy who just said, hey, what if we worshipped this badass looking goat god? And he borrowed the name Baphomet from the Knights Templar of the 11th century who were accused in some kind of trial of having gone heretic and started worshiping a god called Baphomet, which is almost certainly a corruption of Mahomet, like what Muhammad was called medievally,
right,
in the West.
But now, wait, wasn't the goat what the Israelites were worshiping when Moses went up and threw down the?
No.
Oh, what was it?
That's a calf.
Oh, a calf.
See, that goes back to your theory that the bull should be the horny animal,
the golden calf. Well, so what's the earliest appearance of bad goat? Is it in the Epic of Gilgamesh?
I don't know if there's Babylonian bad goat. Like it might be the, I mean, the story of the Azazel goat from Leviticus is almost certainly based on pre-existing traditions in the Middle East.
Yeah, there's nothing new under
But
the
that
sun.
might be our oldest attested version of bad goat. But today we just take it for granted that, oh yeah, like goats are so bad that Satan is just basically a big goat.
He's a big goat,
And,
right?
and nobody thinks to ask, well, why? Why do we think goats are sexy and bad?
Do Hindus have goat problems?
I don't think so.
Or do the Chinese have any kind of goat issue?
I don't think so. I mean, the Hindus have the goat-headed god Nagamesha.
And what does Nagamesha do? Good god, bad god?
Good god, I think.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's no Hindu god that's truly bad. I mean, even Kali the Destroyer is part of the circle of
Well, there's no
samsara.
Hindu god that's truly good either.
They're complicated.
Yeah,
they got
they
a lot
are.
going on.
Just like real people.
I mean, they have many hands they can hold things in.
Mm-hmm.
Associated with children and childbirth and war. So, I mean, he actually is a fertility god. So maybe there is something universal about goats.
Humping.
Goats are doing it.
Yeah.
But this idea that goats are the most potent and randy of animals kind of reaches its cultural high point in America of the 1920s. Let me introduce you to one John R. Brinkley. The R was originally for Romulus, which I guess ties you back to ancient
Rome.
goatish traditions.
Yeah.
But he later changed it to Richard. He changed it to something more boring.
John Richard
Brinkley.
Romulus Brinkley.
Nay, Romulus Brinkley, born in 1885 in some holler of rural North Carolina. His daddy had actually been, he was a Civil War veteran. His dad had been a medic in the Confederate Army. And maybe Brinkley thought that medical heritage was in his blood because, he became one of the wandering young people of that time. He learned how to use a telegraph and became a railroad telegrapher. Is that how you say that?
Yeah. I thought you were going to say that he was wandering the West just giving like free range amputations.
We're going to get to that because he did start to get into these traveling patent medicine shows where he and his wife would do a little song and do a little dance and then
make a little love.
They would not make a little love, but they would tell you to buy some kind of oil or medicament, you would say.
If you're selling me oil, I'd like you to see him make a little love. Your song and dance, sure.
Is it a guaranteed sale from you? Anytime you see somebody make a little love, you will buy oil from them?
It depends on, it's really down to the quality of the lovemaking.
Every time you fill up your car, do you need to see the Saudis make a little love?
Oh, Saudi love.
Doesn't hurt,
Now you're looking at my porn search terms.
Brinkley dropped out of, I think he ditched that family. I think he had a kid with his traveling medicine show wife, but he decided he was going to move up in the world, which for him meant going to Chicago and attending Bennett's Eclectical Medical College, which it turned out didn't require much attending at all because it was pretty much a diploma mill.
Even then.
Even then, like have you been to Bennett's Eclectical Medical College recently?
I have 4 degrees from them. But I thought they had once been an accredited institution.
It was kind of there were a bunch of these eclectic medical schools, which was, I think maybe this one might have been legit, but it was kind of a flaky naturopathy school.
Like we get letters.
We know people attending Bastyr University here in Seattle today, getting their ND. I mean, it's important to remember that back then, what we think of as medicine was just kind of one strain of options available to somebody who had a sore throat.
Right.
You could go to a doctor, sure.
You could take heroin.
You could, you could go to a, what was it called? That chiropractic adjacent thing that people would do. But there were people who would give you an herbalist remedy.
They would give you an oatmeal enema. They'd put a leech on you.
There were all kinds of options, and evidence-based medicine pretty much won. Although you can't really make fun of that stuff, since I'm sure I could find 10 people I know right now online trying to sell, or their spouses trying to sell essential oils to somebody.
It won for a while, but it feels like it's on the wane now as more and more people are talking to me about What's the thing that's the opposite of rolfing, where they give you a massage by barely touching you? You know this? That's some kind
I'm
of...
doing this to you right now.
Yeah. Ooh, well, that feels amazing.
I'm not even going to charge for this.
Thank you, Ken. That's beautiful.
I'm 6 feet away and I can still anti-Rolf you.
You did. You anti-rolfed me and my fascia all feels massaged.
So, it wasn't weird that it didn't necessarily make him a crook that he was pursuing alternate plant-based medicinal stuff. Although in his case, he was a huge crook.
Yes.
He, after he drops out of that university, as I said, ditches his family, starts drinking, turns up 5 years later in Greenville, South Carolina, where he is now an electromedic doctor.
What is that?
Because electricity is now on the scene as a way that quacks can. In his case, he doesn't actually zap you. He just, if you say you're impotent, he'll inject colored water into your buttocks for $25. Which, buy me dinner first.
If you write me and say you're impotent, I will inject colored water into your buttocks for $25.
I'll do it for less. Listen.
Send a photo.
Listen, I'll do it for 24. Don't use John.
Wow.
I'll give you the... Use promo code Omnibus, and I'll inject colored water into your buttocks for 10% off. And obviously this did not work, and his clientele, I think, discovered this, and so he fled to Memphis, married a second wife, got arrested for not having a license to do any of this stuff, plus passing bad checks.
Wait, you can get a license to inject colored water into people's buttocks?
Well, I think at the time you could get a license to practice medicine, which would give you more leeway with the town. If the new country doctor tells everybody that he's injecting colored water into their buttocks.
Right.
And let me just assume that he didn't lead with, hey, this is colored water.
No, you're right.
He was injecting colored water, but I'm sure he was telling them that he had a miracle cure.
Yeah, sure.
He's an electromedic doctor. I'm sure it's full of all natural electrolytes or something.
I mean, my great grandfather was a judge, and I think he went to college. I think he went to not college. I think he got his law degree on the back of a cereal box, frankly. But he came out west, and they needed judges.
So he's in real trouble here in South Carolina because of his check kiting, etc. Luckily, his new father-in-law agrees to pay for the bounce checks. And he skips town with his, I think he takes his second wife with him. But this time he winds up at a diploma mill in Kansas City, also called Eclectic Medical University. I think eclectic was to them what naturopathy is to us. It just, it signals some kind of non-traditional natural remedy.
Yeah. Eclectic. That's what I look for in a doctor.
Like people have called this podcast eclectic, and that's what it means. We try to sell you essential oils during the break.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, he paid $100, got his diploma, which says he's now a doctor.
A double eclectic doctor.
He never graduated from the one in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
He dropped out.
All right.
He probably leaves that off his resume.
So does he put MD at the back of his name now?
Yeah, I don't know. He's definitely Dr. Brinkley.
Mm-hmm.
And he shows up in Milford, Kansas, a town in need of a country doctor. And he sets up practice. I think at first he was maybe practicing in Arkansas.
Yep.
And then through some kind of reciprocity, he got Kansas to admit him to their medical. He got the Kansas Medical Board on board and then moved to Milford, Kansas. This guy appears to have moved around a lot, probably because of the trail of damaged relationships and dead patients in his wake, or just over injected buttocks in his wake.
So he's running the telegraph office and the hospital now.
His telegraph days are probably over. He is now the beloved Dr. Brinkley of Milford. He's got a 16-room practice because this town was down a doctor, and by all accounts, he's extremely popular. He he makes house calls. He knows everybody's name. During the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic, he actually is credited with saving a bunch of lives. He seems to, at all odds, have turned a corner and become, left his past behind him and become a good old-fashioned country doctor. Now, at this point in a movie, his past would catch up with him. But here, it's all Brinkley who does the damage to himself.
Now, I should say that Milford, Kansas, is still a town. It has a population of 530.
I bet it was higher then if he had a 16-room clinic.
It had a lumber mill back in the old days.
Right.
But it's there in Geary County, very close between. It seems like it's between Manhattan, Kansas, and Junction City, if you know what I mean. And there's only 203 households.
It's a good place for MIT sociologists to send postcards to.
Yeah, they should do.
So at the same time as he is becoming a town hero due to his loving care and good bedside manner, he is starting to dabble in goat glands.
Quoi?
A farmer named Bill Stitsworth, as part of his checkup, rues the fact that he is no longer as, his libido is no longer as reliable in performance as it once was in his youth.
Oh, yeah.
And he jokes, this is a pre-Viagra era. In the future, we're speaking to people who, erections are a dime a dozen, I'm sure.
Sure.
Or if they even have them.
1 dime a dozen. I'll sell them to you for 9 cents. Undercut Ken.
Use promo code Omnibus. But, back then, this was a common thing that middle-aged men would bewail.
Yeah, their baldness and their lack of potency.
And Stitsworth, as a farmer, says, "Boy, I wish I was as I wish I had the
get up and go,
the get up and go of my billy goats that I see in my pen."
It might be his wife that wishes.
Yes, it's probably more Mrs. Stitsworth.
He's hearing about it at the breakfast table.
And Brinkley agrees that goats are indeed, the randiest of the barnyard residents.
Okay, we just don't see enough goats, you and I, to formulate this opinion.
I guess so. We're just going off of cartoons, which don't have enough horny goats.
We're gonna have to throw this one to futurelings who are either
more agrarian listeners. Yeah.
Well, but you have to guess if goats are truly the horniest aminal, it means that futurelings will all be goats, right? Because
invariably goats.
They'll have taken over the world.
Are you a Capricorn? Me too. And so he says, well, look, and going, realizing he's got this past of patent medicine quackery, he says, well, I'd like to try something out. Do you think goats? What if you let me insert the testicle of a baby goat into your scrotum, and we'll see what that does. Maybe that would give you all the native potency of a billy goat.
So he's not grinding it up and making it into a salve. He's actually taking
You'd think.
Yeah, he's taking a baby goat testicle.
6-week-old goat testicle, about the size of a macadamia nut, if you're wondering.
And inserting it physically into your own testicles.
He does not tell the patient exactly what he's doing. It really, in most cases, what he ends up doing is taking this nut-sized goat ball or a slice thereof and just inserting it under the skin of the scrotum. It doesn't actually go into the business end of the scrotum.
This is going to cause infection.
It's not a great idea. And as we see, he's not without casualties in this practice, but it's a pretty simple surface level surgery if you don't go too deep down there. And he tells the patient that he's connecting up blood vessels, and all the regenerative power of the goat testicle is zooming into your blood, and you have nothing to worry about anymore.
This is like shark fin soup.
And in fact, he's not actually doing it. Yeah, exactly.
Or ground rhino horn.
Exactly. Or your bear gallbladder or whatever it is that people eat today in hopes that it'll liven up the old marital bed.
Now, why is this seemingly a universal and cross-cultural idea that you take an aminal with a big boner or a horn that looks like a boner, or basically either a horn or a big fin or just a big aminal, and then you ingest it somehow and you're going to have big boners too? I don't see.
I assume it's based on the assumption of a ignorant city dweller, that animals never have a hard time performing.
Oh yeah,
the shark or the male shark or male bear, presumably 100%.
You never see a bale hanging its head in shame, sitting on a rock, going, "Why can't I?"
You never see a older bear and his perky wife sitting on a porch swing like in a Cialis commercial.
Right.
We assume nature finds a way, and it's only modern neurosis that's preventing.
Oh, it's our neuroses, sure.
Or fluoride in the water, who knows? 5G, something. But I guess the assumption is that in the animal world, this stuff always works, or there wouldn't be any more animals.
Right.
So Stitsworth comes back 2 weeks later and says, what do you think?
My testicle is inflamed and is falling off.
Why is my scrotum now the size of a human head?
No, what does he say? He says, my wife is so happy with your procedure.
Yeah, everything worked great.
Wow, no kidding.
And it's, for obvious reasons. There's a psychological component here. And he thought he had goat
powers.
Yeah, goat elixirs zooming through his what do you have down there? His he noticed a vas deferens. Let's put it that way. And
you should be in jail. You should be in jail.
And it's like the magic feather from Dumbo. Like it was all psychosomatic, but if he thought it was going to work, presto.
You can do it. You can do it.
And
now I don't envy his wife.
John Brinkley sees an opening here. Because now he starts to advertise that he is now a surgeon, something he was not before.
Right.
And he goes to Chicago to study surgery and actually fails the course.
Sure.
But
understandable.
But apparently tells the professor, I have a scheme up my sleeve and the whole world will hear of it. Which is really not what you should say on the record when you're about to embark on a con.
Up his sleeve or...
So Brinkley starts to advertise that he has the cure for what ails you down there. And all the gentlemen of Milford, Kansas line up. Soon he's doing 50 goat gland implantations a month, charging $750 a week, I think. Charging $750. That would be $9,000 a pop. So clearly he's expanded to the big city.
Whoa.
If he can charge $9,000, $2,020.
Whoa.
Because surely insurance is not covering this.
Right. Right. But I mean,
maybe it does. I mean, there's often a lot made of how all these, every HMO will pay for Viagra. But not for whatever the, equivalent of female medicine is.
Can you put a price though on your
reliability,
on your performance?
Apparently there are plenty of men who are at the end of their rope, as it were.
Oh boy.
And he starts to get a name for himself. He sponsors a little league team called the Brinkley Goats.
Okay.
He's a very good, he's not a good surgeon, but he's a great marketer, because he's in Los Angeles and Chicago. And because this seems to work, because people will say, yeah, once I had the confidence that came with a Brinkley ball in my old bag, things just went so much better. He's able to find leading citizens of Chicago all the way out to Los Angeles, judges and city fathers and newspaper editors, and everybody agrees that this is working and will provide testimonials. He begins offering infertile women who can't conceive, goat ovary implants based on the same principles.
I'm not sure fertility in a woman is quite the same. It's not really based in the same pheromonal rutting.
There certainly is. The female clientele certainly seems to be more skeptical, and let's give them credit on that point, because it turns out that the money is in the testes, as is so often the case.
Yes.
In 1923, he starts his own radio station, Milford's own KFKB, Kansas First, Kansas Best, I guess.
Is he on the air just for a couple of hours a day, or?
It's a mix of programming, but amid all the programming, some of which is him doing like his talk show Medical Question Box, which is basically
great name,
Loveline. Except, no matter what the question is, the answer is always goat glands, which he's now touting as a panacea for everything.
Doctor, I've been having a hard time getting my fingers to work in the morning. What do I do?
Well, what he would say, actually, he had a genius idea, which is to start numbering his patent medicines.
Oh.
Because in that case, he didn't even have to tell you what it was. He didn't have to, there was no pretense, and people loved hearing, number 61. He'd be like, well, for your fingers, what you need is some of my number 61, and I can send you a vial of that in the mail, know. So right to, people loved hearing that they were getting number 61 or number 29 or whatever.
Mambo number 5.
And it was all just, Medical Question Box was just offering more of the colored water he would inject into your buttocks if he could. And then in the ads, the ad time would all be him. So in between advertising, there would be literal ads where he would say, witness the stallion, like, if you're a gelding, look at the erect proud, flowing stallion, ready for anything,
Don't be a gelding.
Exactly.
Although it's a little late for the gelding.
Right. The gelding just needs some goat glands, I think. Soon he's selling $10,000 a week, and there are businesses in, thoroughfares of cities with, signage advertising goat glands for sale or implantation there. He is now part of a quasi-medical empire.
Wow.
And this is how I first heard of him, by the way. I was watching an old Buster.
I can't wait.
I was back in the early 20s. I was walking down the streets of Wichita.
My wife said...
No, I was watching a Buster Keaton movie, like an old silent comedy short subject, and Buster walks by a place that says Goat Glands. Is the name of the storefront says Goat Glands. And is it
played for laughs?
Yeah, it's not just here's part of the fabric of life. It's a sight gag where he kind of does a double take, and I think maybe he considers it and then he brushes it off. And I was like, what is the joke here? Why is Buster thinking about goat glands? And this sent me down the goat hole, as it were, of John Romulus Brinkley. It's not foolproof, as you said. He's not a surgeon.
Yeah.
You don't want to just keep cutting people's genitals up and hoping for the best.
There's no penicillin at the time.
Right. And by some accounts, as many as 42 people die as a result of his miracle cures.
Collateral damage.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you need for science to advance, right?
Right.
Sometimes there's a greater good. In 1930, he starts to have his first adversity. The Federal Radio Commission, I mean, even though he's killed dozens of people, the first people that come after him are the FCC.
Because it's an unlicensed radio.
Yeah, the radio station is like, you can't just put up ads for yourself. We have rules about that kind of thing, because radio was the Wild West for a while.
Right.
And then the government moves in, and now they're going to tell you can't just advertise phony patent medicines 24/7 using yourself as the advertiser. And they say this violates their policy, and they take away his license. And then the Kansas Medical Board starts investigating some of these
oh boy,
ill effects of his surgeries.
Here we go.
And they take away his medical license.
Nanny state.
The nanny goat state, as it were. He's a billy goat in a nanny goat world. And Brinkley has an idea. He knows how to get around the state of Kansas. 3 days later, he announces he is running for governor.
Yep.
Unfortunately, he has missed because the governor appoints the medical board. So all he has to do, it's the
Pennsylvania school board problem.
It's the Trump theory. You just appoint people that won't prosecute you or will pardon you or whatever. And
he's a very popular character at this point.
Oh, he's beloved because everybody listens to his radio station, and everyone sees his cure-all advertised everywhere. Some of the ads are like, there's an ad where he poses with the first goat gland baby, and it's a photo op of him with an actual baby that's been produced through the good graces of goat jizz.
Well, a lot of his prospective voters are walking around with these goat glands in their balls,
literally in their pants. And unfortunately, he's announced his candidacy too late to get on the ballot, so he's going to have to run as a write-in candidate. That's a hard road. It's an uphill battle, but he's a genius self-promoter. He flies around barnstorms around the state in his own plane, and he kind of, this being the early 30s, it's very easy for him to remake himself into a kind of a populist Father Coughlin type. Was that how we said it? Coughlin? How do you say it? Coughlin?
Coughlin.
A Father Coughlin type, full of populist fist shaking against, the evils of big government that won't let the little man do what he wants and put the glands he wants in his balls.
Does he wear a leather flight cap with the strap off?
Almost certainly.
Jauntily.
Right? If he flies into your town in his little biplane and tells you that the government would have told Jesus not to do anything in his day either,
Well, at first he flies really low over your town and crop dusts it with a bunch of goat musk.
And once everybody's really, are you horny for change? He yells from his biplane. And it looks like he's going to win, because it's Depression era Dust Bowl, and everybody likes an entertainer who will tell them that things are going to get better.
But then Herbert Hoover.
Worse.
Oh,
Harry, I don't know the name. The Attorney General of Kansas sees what's coming and does not want this guy to be governor. And, I'm sure he's a crony of maybe one of the other candidates.
Right. Of big human pheromone.
And he rules that a vote for Brinkley will only be accepted if the write-in vote actually says J.R. Brinkley spelled correctly.
Okay.
No misspellings or variants. I feel like this was an issue when Murkowski was write-in Alaska, wasn't it? Because she's got a hard-to-spell name.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to accept Murtkowski? Like on Jeopardy, you could get away maybe with a wrong vowel pronunciation, but boy, if you add a consonant, you're going to lose that game.
Is that right? Now, how much of that was up to Alex, and how much of it was some behind-the-scenes group?
Alex was making a lot of calls on the fly, but mostly informed ones because nobody had as much experience adjudicating that show as him.
But if you put an extra C in a word, that was enough.
Do you remember the kid that lost on Kids Week because he put Emancipation Proclamation with an extra T?
Oh.
And Jeopardy abided by its rules and said, hey, I'm afraid this is not a plausible way to spell the word emancipation because you have written a different word with a different sound, emancipation, and that's our bright line test. But the kid it broke the kid's heart.
A lot of fans.
And his parents were stage parents. So the next day they're on the morning shows complaining about how they got jobbed by Jeopardy, which was just following its own rules. But
right.
Let's just say Jeopardy hasn't had a Kids Week or a Teen Week since then.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. But on a write-in ballot, it is a little trickier, How close can you come from Murkowski or John Romulus Brinkley? I guess he's John Richard Brinkley by now.
So this is a voter suppression technique.
Absolutely. It's kind of an Evo Morales issue where, on the one hand, maybe we don't admire the constitutional tricks that are being pulled to keep this guy out of office. On the other hand, do we really want this guy,
the Goat Gland guy,
running a third term, or the Goat Gland guy running Kansas? Yeah. So it takes 12 days to tally up all the votes because this is trickier in a write-in election. Brinkley comes in only 34,000 votes off the lead.
Still a lot of votes in rural Kansas.
Yeah, but it's an election of 500,000 votes. So he's within 10% certainly or less of the winner. Harry Woodring, later of FDR's cabinet, wins the gubernatorial seat, but he admits that had he
actually been on the ballot,
that had all the misspelled votes been accepted or the variants of J.R. Brinkley, people who put Goat Nad guy or whatever, he would have lost.
Wow.
Brinkley should have been governor of Kansas. That's how close he came.
But 4 years later, it was too late.
Well, by 4 years later, he's been run out of Kansas. It looked like he was going to win, but the fix was in, and he flees to Del Rio, Texas, where he now takes up the prostate, as we all do at some point in our lives.
Oh, yes.
At some point in middle age, he now decides that goat glands are the cure for what ails your prostate.
It's the number one conversation in men over their 70s, over their 60s even maybe.
And so he decides that he's going to rebrand himself as the prostate guy, still using the same goat juices.
But is he putting the goat juice directly in the prostate? Or is he still putting it in the testicles? How does he administer it as a prostate cure?
I mean, he's doing surgeries, which I'm sure are the equivalent of the fake Andy Kaufman thing where you go to Mexico and they pretend they did something to you, but really they don't. I'm sure he's doing as little as possible in there to reduce the chances of
somebody dying.
Side effects, yeah.
You can definitely stimulate the prostate in a way that feels like surgery.
Or not. Or the best surgery, who knows?
Right.
It's kind of up to the skill of the J.R. Brinkley, I guess.
This is the best surgery I ever had.
I'm going to need another few of these, I think, Doc. And his secret sauce is, he's had success with his radio station in Kansas. So he's got the foolproof way to get on the map in Del Rio, Texas, which is to cross the Mexican border and start a radio station that would not be legal under U.S. guidelines.
He's on the Mexican radio.
He invents
what?
The Mexican border blaster.
The Station X border blasters?
As far as I can tell, a bunch of, he starts XER.
Whoa.
And gets the Mexican government to give him a 1,000,000 watt license, which means Alaska to Panama is now hearing medical question box and ads for Dr. Brinkley's miracle prostate cure.
He heard it on the X, or I heard it. They heard it on the X.
That's the ZZ Top song, right?
Top song.
Yeah, there's a series of great... Okay, so this is the same time when other people are getting the same idea. But from what I can tell, Dr. Brinkley has a pretty good case of being the first Mexican border blaster.
Whoa.
These stations that don't have to be licensed and can therefore play whatever they want. And I guess maybe are not paying royalties. Is that how pirate radio usually works?
Well, so I considered doing border blasters as an omnibus topic, but since we're talking about it now,
well, maybe we should hold off, like because I'm
going to have to go back and tell the story of Brinkley. We got here by this way.
I'm sure there are other radio entrepreneurs who started up systems at the same time with this because it's an obvious idea.
Well, Mexican radio stations, pirate radio stations. They continued into the late 1970s. That's why it was such a popular topic in pop music. But that was also popular in the UK. Those offshore radio stations the
Beatles grew up hearing songs that the BBC wouldn't play over Radio Luxembourg.
Yeah,
right.
Well, but they just would put up a radio station out on one of those oil platforms and beam it into the UK. Yeah,
there's like a Richard Curtis movie about it.
Wow, that's fascinating that it all started here with this.
Well, his quote, which, when it's credited to him, it's because he said, the idea that came to him was radio waves will pay no attention to lines on a map.
Yep.
Just kind of this new era where you don't have to worry about borders or telegraph lines because it's just all the strength of the transmitter.
So now he was blowing out the Grand Ole Opry on people's radios, and he became the most popular man in America?
He is actually playing the Grand Ole Opry. He, the way he decides to get his unguents and salves and miracle cures recommended to an audience is to do it in the ads of his Appalachian music of his childhood in North Carolina. This was rural, little-known music, but suddenly he is broadcasting it from Alaska to Panama.
Wait a minute, are you saying he popularized country and western music?
I'm not saying country and western music never would have happened, but I think this appears to be a big means by which this local rural music hit a mass audience. Wow. Because now people in Alaska can hear
famous country and western or famous Appalachian music fans in Alaska.
Yeah, they love the Carter family up there. They're always talking about it.
Actually.
And and so half the time it's this and half the time it's his kind of the same kind of populist bunkum he was spouting on the campaign trail. It's I'm sure his right-wing anti-New Deal, anti-regulation tirades, and then interspersed with
fertility cures.
Yeah, you need some goat in your boat.
Having trouble peeing?
Exactly. So now a hemisphere can hear him, and he cleans up.
Wow.
He's got a palatial mansion. He's got 3 yachts.
So he's broadcasting from Mexico, but he's still living in the United States.
Exactly. He has persuaded the Mexican government to give him XER, which becomes full-time good down-home music and populist yelling and ads for prostate tickling. And but in doing this, he becomes big enough to make a very powerful enemy. I said that there were different strains of medicine at this time, but this is right around the time when there's an inflection point and the AMA is formed to kind of stamp out all the quacks and weirdos.
Right. I thought you were going to say it was Ted Turner, but you're saying it's the doctors.
I'm saying it's the Journal of the American Medical Association, and specifically the head of the AMA at the time, at least the editor of JAMA? What do you call the magazine? Do you say it like an acronym or do you say it like an initialism?
The Journal of the American Medical Association.
That's why I said it that way before, because I didn't know. Morris Fishbein, the editor of the journal, takes particular exception to Brinkley's methods and his success.
Boy, if you're going to make an enemy in this world, don't have it be Morris Fishbein.
This is now the arm of the most powerful medical organization in America, which again is decided it's going to clean up the patent medicine quackery. And he writes a big editorial about what a quack Brinkley is and don't be fooled. And Brinkley makes the classic Oscar Wilde mistake and sues the guy for libel.
Oh boy. Because the only people that read that before were doctors who already knew it.
It shouldn't be called the Streisand effect. It should be called the goat ball Fishbein effect.
So he sues him and then all of a sudden he's in Time magazine.
So then all of a sudden there's a big trial at which Fishbein, in which he would have to bring proof that he is not a quack. And Fishbein can bring evidence that, in fact, Brinkley is not a good doctor and that putting goat juice in your sack is not helpful. And he loses the case. The IRS starts to come at him. Now that he's weakened, the IRS comes at him for mail fraud because he's been defrauding people with the federal mails, which again is the kind of thing that gets the government involved. The IRS comes after him because, again, he's got 3 yachts and maybe he's not paying all his taxes. And the fact that his libel suit is unsuccessful means that people can start coming after him for
damages,
malpractice.
Oh, geez.
So he suddenly goes from one of the most famous doctors, in quotes, in America to just bankrupted by hundreds of suits. And by 1942, he is living penniless and alone in San Antonio, which is where he dies of a heart attack, ending the goat story.
Wow, I thought you were going to say that he ended up roaming around San Antonio in a cart pulled by a goat. That would be a fun end.
I don't believe he was actually ever a goat believer. I don't know if he ever... Yeah, I don't know.
You think this was all quackery? He didn't actually feel like, you know what, there's something to this.
Well, he's telling people, if he's specifically telling people, yeah, I'm hooking up all the ducts and the capillaries, don't you worry. But he knows he's just sliding it between layers of their skin.
I see.
Like he has to know for them. And even when it works, he has to know that, yeah, you could tell these people anything and they would suddenly hit the sack with new confidence.
Sure. Way more troubling to think that he actually hooked up the capillaries.
Yeah. It's much better, actually. In fact, if you're going to be putting a slice of baby goat ball in someone, yeah, closer to the surface, the better. That's my rule of thumb. But
isn't that fascinating that that he had such a lasting and potentially lasting effect on American culture?
So the Mexican radio stations, as you mentioned, the border blasters, survive into the 50s when one of them, I think it's XER, his own station hires a young
Wolfman Jack,
Robert Weston Smith, who becomes Wolfman Jack.
No, really?
On the air and helps popularize
rock and roll,
rhythm and blues, turning into rock and roll as the new sound of the American youth. You know, we all assume Wolfman Jack was in that studio outside Modesto from American Graffiti.
Right.
And in fact, every community had that rumor that Wolfman Jack was, just on the other side of the railroad tracks. He's in some little, I think even in American Graffiti, they're like, no, I heard he's up in Canada. No, I heard he's in San Diego, In fact, he was, he was broadcasting from
TJ,
the Mexican border in continuation of the legacy of John Brinkley. So if you want to think about the forces of virility and potency he gave America, he gave us rock and roll.
That's incredible.
He gave us Chuck Berry and Little Richard and all the babies that were conceived as a result.
And Wall of Voodoo.
So maybe
he gave us New Wave too.
Yeah. So if you or anyone you know was conceived
anytime between 1935 and present
to a post R&B or even, he gave us country music apparently. So any post folk music, it turned out John Brinkley really did know how to make babies.
Well, my parents both were jazz people.
Oh,
and so
escaped.
I have completely escaped his influence.
Like all good church-going folk, I was conceived to Handel's Messiah.
Right.
And
right.
I too
sung by the Mormon Tabernacle Choir.
I too am not a Brinkley baby. But so you and I are probably the last in America.
Yeah, that's right. Well, high five, that seems like more of a rock and roll thing. So I guess you and I should do some sort of Masonic handshake.
You shouldn't tell people that you were a jazz product.
That I'm a jazz baby?
Yeah. Just pretend it was pretend it was.
What?
I don't know.
What else is there? You're saying it should be marching band music?
Conceived to a Sousa march. No, let's see. You were born in 69.
68.
68. So it could literally be, yeah, exactly. So,
but my parents were eschewing rock and roll at the time, scoffing at it and scorning it.
But chronologically, you could have been conceived to the Stones or
it's possible,
or Hendrix or Muddy Waters or whatever you want.
I mean, maybe but I think I was conceived on a cruise ship in in Honolulu.
So Mantovani or Don Ho?
No, it would have been Don Ho. And that concludes Goat Glands.
It's fun. Meh.
Entry 536.AC0409. Certificate number 42674 in the omnibus. Futurelings, in the unlikely event that social media still exists in your era, I'm sure it is completely goat-centric. There might be Mexican radios even then, because, of course, those borders will...
We're the Mexican radio of the future, John.
Oh, we are?
Yeah, we're broadcasting from space. From orbit.
Well, in that case, you can follow Ken's written works that he types out with his little hooves at Ken Jennings on social media. You can find me participating in the discourse group on my Patreon site at patreon.com/John Roderick. But you can support the Omnibus Project on patreon.com at patreon.com/Omnibus Project. And different contribution levels on our Patreon give you access to different cool features, including addenda episodes and opportunities to actually contribute to the show and the making of the show.
We cannot do it without you or right. Them. If you're not one of the you, why not be one of the you? It's time to hop on board.
Yeah, upgrade from being a them to a you.
You train is leaving the station.
You can hang out with other futurelings wherever futurelings appear on the internet: Facebook, Reddit, Discord.
Say their name 3 times in a mirror at night, and they will appear.
And you can email us at theomnibusproject@gmail.com, and you can send us actual packages to P.O. Box 55744, Shoreline, Washington, 98155. Now, what do you got over there in the old feed bag?
Alex sent us a postcard. This is Donner Lake. This is nice because we...
that is nice.
Recently added to the omnibus, although...
Oh, wait, that show hasn't aired yet.
No, how did Alex know?
Creepy Alex.
He's in Salt Lake City. He's traveling cross country from Tiburon, California to Philadelphia, PA.
Go. How's he traveling?
Listening to Omnibus on the trip. I don't know. I'm going to assume...
Goat-pulled cart.
I'm going to assume goat cart. Yeah, that's how I would get across the Sierra Nevada. Thanks, Alex. And then Beth sent us an Edward Gorey card telling us about her new masks that she has sewn.
Love that, Edward Gorey. Oh, she's made some masks.
I'm not sure if... I don't believe this is our previous mask correspondent. Maybe this is a new mask maker.
Well, I believe that Beth may be a participant, a regular poster on my aforementioned discourse site.
Maybe this is the previous one, because she definitely knows that we have different sized faces.
Oh, look at that.
Here's the giant...
The big bearded
Roderick-sized mask.
How many masks did we get over there?
3 of each size.
Oh,
I mean, these. And,
Oh, these are cool.
We're both vaccinated now, but apparently Beth knows something we don't about new variants coming out of India, because she is loading us up with masks just in case.
I believe that socially you're still sort of somewhat obligated to wear a mask just to make other people feel comfortable. Let's see how it goes. Can you hear me?
You do need a bigger mask than me. That's a lot of face.
Yeah, somebody said to me the other day that the beard poking out of the bottom of my mask was discomforting.
These are reversible, it looks like.
Yeah. Oh, and they also have adjustable ear tensioners.
I'm going to need to adjust mine, because even these small ones are too big for my face. Unless I threw you the small ones.
No, these are the big ones. How does it look?
It's good.
Yeah, thanks.
That's got a real kind of a Arabian Nights thing going on with that red and gold one.
Mm-hmm.
You're ready to take me back to your...
Ready to roll. Ready to fly my magic carpet.
Oh, no, they're not reversible. They're just lined with this nice cornflower pattern. Very nice. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Beth.
Listeners, from our vantage point here in your distant past, we have no idea how long this civilization survived before the goats replaced us all. We hope and pray that catastrophe may never come, but if the worst comes soon, this recording, like all our recordings, may be our final word. But if Providence or Baphomet allow, we hope to be back with you soon for another entry in the Omnibus.